A very good evening to all of you. I welcome you all to the ICAN initiative, the Hindu and Indian Express analysis. As I have told yesterday, we will be stopping the prelims theme of the day and also the prelims question based on current events from now. Let's now focus on revising whatever we have already read and not end up learning any new things. So focus on your revision, and also if possible make sure that now the length of the ICAN videos has also been reduced to around 15 to 20 minutes. So by reading your prelim stuff for 15 to 20 minutes will not decide whether you're going to clear prelims or not, and this is extremely important even from your prelims point of view. So try to be in touch, try to at least listen to the videos of ICAN even if you're not making any notes, even if you're not taking notes out of it, because I have been repeatedly saying this that somehow this current affairs even till the last day becomes very important on the day of the prelims, which you will realize only when you are consistently following current affairs, and you will realize when you're facing the questions on the day of the prelims. That's when you realize that something that you just heard and you thought that this was only important from the perspective of mains have actually helped you to eliminate the wrong answers in your prelims paper. So at least try to be in touch even when you're taking a small break. Make sure that you listen to these current affairs videos. So this is one thing, and post your prelims exam we will be resuming with the motivation or the quote or story of the day, and also with one question and its analysis every day. So now we'll try to keep it as short as possible to just let you know the most important things which are also relevant from the prelims point of view. So we'll do that. Now we'll take up the first topic of the day, which is related to electoral reform, and in that we'll be talking about the importance of remote voting and what are the hurdles in that. Electoral reforms, as you all know, is a part of your GS syllabus 2, which has a specific topic of electoral reforms and the provisions in the Representation of Peoples Act. So this whole article was about the use of blockchain technology in electoral voting, in the voting process. Because of several reasons, not many people are able to vote. At least some of the most marginal and the vulnerable sections are not able to vote because they are not present at the place where they are registered their voter ID cards. So in this backdrop, we should be able to make use of the upcoming technologies like the blockchain technologies in order to provide a medium in order to provide a way for these voters to be able to cast their votes. So now in this context, we will discuss this electoral reform, which is about remote voting using blockchain technology, and we'll also analyze the issues related to it, or what are the challenges we may face if you're trying to use blockchain technology in your voting. So first is the benefits. The benefits is that blockchain technology is a kind of technology which will prevent the anonymity, which will protect the anonymity of the users. So therefore you can be assured about the anonymity of the voters in this process. So that is one of the most important things when you are talking about your right to cast your vote and your freedom to make a choice about whom you want to cast your vote. So this whole technology is going to preserve the anonymity of the voters. The second important benefit of this is that it can also increase the reach of the voting process. So now you know that many of the internal migrants, while we were discussing about the migrants issue under the COVID pandemic, so we know that these internal migrants, they are not able to cast their votes because their place of work is different from the place where their voter ID cards are registered. So this all India portability is not there, and these workers are not able to go back to their towns and villages where they are registered as voters to cast their votes. So many of these population, the internal migrants, who are one of the most vulnerable sections and whose voice should actually be heard, they should actually have more choice, more freedom to make the choice in the votes. They are not even able to cast their votes. So if this Bitcoin technology, or rather the blockchain technology, is used in voting process, then it can allow these internal migrants, who are 51 million in number according to the census 2011, these internal migrants will then be able to cast their votes. So these are the benefits of using blockchain technology in casting the votes. Now we will look at the challenges that this can. The first thing is a physical presence. According to the system that has been proposed now, that is how blockchain technology can be used to help in remote voting. it will still require the physical presence of the voter. Reason being, even when it is based on a blockchain technology, as voting is a very sensitive issue, the systems which will support this technology and which can enable the voters to cast their votes, they will be based on dedicated internet lines. So this is important. It will be based on dedicated internet lines, because these systems will be based on dedicated internet lines. They cannot be made available to every house. So there is going to be a particular venue where the voters will have to go to cast their vote. So therefore the physical presence will not be, you cannot rule out that, and that will, even after introducing the blockchain technology for remote voting, it is not going to be completely remote where you can vote from the comforts of your home. We will still have to go to a venue where there is a system that has a dedicated internet line. So this is one thing. Second is the biometric. So when we talk about this, that in such a system, again, the biometric details or the biometric of the voters will have to be collected in order to authenticate the person. So again, in this case, we will face issues which are already being faced by people when they are trying to authenticate using their biometric in authentication during, say, let's say the fair price shops in the PDS systems where biometric authentication is required. So the same problems may repeat here when the biometric is actually collected from the voters in order to authenticate them. The third important issue is the cryptographic protocols which are used in the implementation of these systems. So in the case of remote voting using blockchain technologies, some cryptographic protocols will be built and implemented to bring this system into practice. But if these protocols are not properly built and implemented, and if there is any fault in these protocols, then there is a chance that the identity of voters may be leaked. And there is even a chance that you end up discovering what is the voting preference or the behavior of the voters. So the voting preference can also be deciphered if these protocols are not properly implemented. So then this will have the impact, or the consequence would be that the voters who have not voted for the ruling party, for instance, may also face some pressure out of the government, or they may also be discriminated against. So this is problematic where the cryptographic protocols on which this whole system works is not properly implemented. Then the identity of the voters may be leaked, and also the voting behavior or the voting preference of the population can also be ascertained if there is fault in the implementation of these protocols. So this is another challenge, and an example for this is the recent elections that took place in Russia, where the Russian president has introduced an very important constitutional amendment, and the voters were asked to vote online. And when the voting was happening online, a media outlet came out and said that because of the faulty protocols, it was possible to know the voting behavior or the voting preference of the population, and the to whom the voters have cast their vote could be determined because of all these things. So the identity of the voters could be unmasked. So that is what happened in the Russian elections. So this is the third concern. The fourth is the concern of cloning. So as I said, the biometric credentials of the voter are going to be collected by the system. So it is possible that an agent may indulge in cloning of these biometric credentials, and may therefore end up having impersonation of the voters and the related frauds. So the cloning of biometric credentials may also happen. Next is the attacks. So in the attacks, what we mean is, as I earlier explained, that there will be dedicated internet lines which will be there for operationalizing this remote voting using the blockchain technology. But even if there are dedicated lines, the network will still be prone to the denial of service attacks. So such attacks can therefore harm the entire voting process, and you cannot rule out such denial of service attacks. So these attacks could also be there. These are the 5 important issues that were discussed in this article related to the challenges that may be confronted by a system for remote voting that is based on blockchain technology. Now we'll move on to the next topic. So the second topic is related to GM crops, and in this article we'll be dealing with the case study of BT cotton. So genetically modified crops, you can, this is a topic under your GS syllabus 3, which is also a topic under your science and technology, but at the same time agriculture is also a topic under your GS syllabus 3, so it can come in that. Previously, as far as I remember, we have already analyzed the GM crops, its issue, and the positives and negatives of adoption of the GM technology. So we have already taken up this as part of our question and answer analysis. So in this article, what we're going to be looking at is the context in which the BT cotton was introduced and what are all the issues that BT cotton is facing today. So whenever you are talking about genetically modified crops and an analysis of that, you can briefly quote this case study of BT cotton and make your case for arguing positive or otherwise. So this is basically, this argument was against the introduction of genetically modified crops. So that is how you can use this case study. So now let's begin by understanding the context of introduction of BT cotton. So when the cotton, India has been growing since time immemorial, right since the Indus Valley civilization, we have been growing cotton in India. And during the British times, we know how much popular the Indian cotton has been across the world. So Indian cotton exports were very popular across the world. And also during our green revolution, we had introduced hybrid varieties of cotton seeds, and that had helped us increase the production of cotton. But however, problems started to surface. So the pest attacks on the cotton seeds, cotton crops began increasing. There was pink bollworm, there was American bollworm. So like that, a lot of pest attacks started happening on cotton. So with the increase in the pest attacks that happened on cotton, which means the farmers had to increase the spraying of pesticides. So they had to buy huge quantities of pesticides and they had to spray it on the cotton crops. So where are they going to get the money to buy the pesticides? So which means that they had to borrow from people. So they got indebted, the debts of the farmers began to rise. However, in spite of spraying so many pesticides also, the yields of the cotton started to get crushed. So there was a reduction in the yields also of the cotton crop, as well as the debts of the farmers also increasing. So this was the context in which BT cotton was introduced. The pest attacks had increased. The farmers were spraying more and more amount of pesticides, for which they got into debt because they had to invest in spraying pesticides. The yields also got crushed. So it was in this context or backdrop that the BT cotton was introduced in the year 2002. So after the introduction of BT cotton in 2002, the yields of the cotton increased tremendously and India became one of the major producers of cotton. But in this article, we will analyze the negative side of the introduction of BT cotton, that is to say whether the introduction of BT cotton has really been helpful to the farmers to increase the yields of cotton or not. So this is what we'll be looking at. So as you can see, the first is the pest resistance. So with the introduction of the BT cotton, so it was pest resistant variety, so therefore it was resistant to a lot of pest attacks. But however, soon it was found out that these BT cotton varieties, they started to become resistant to pests. So which means some of the pests, the new pest attacks started happening on these BT cotton varieties, and the BT cotton could not resist these pests. So there was, for instance, the pink bollworm. So this developed a resistance by 2009. By 2009, the pink bollworm developed a resistance to the BT cotton variety, and therefore the cotton crops, again, they were started to be infested by the pink bollworm. So the situation became extremely dreadful, where again farmers started spraying more of pesticides. So therefore there is this problem of pest resistance. So those pests that this BT cotton initially targeted at, they got used to this and they started to develop this resistance to the BT cotton. So this was one thing that happened by 2009 itself, that was pest resistance. The next important issue with this is the increased spending by the farmers. As I said, this crops, the BT cotton started developing pest resistance, which means the farmers started to again spray more and more amount of pesticides to ensure that these BT cotton crops are not infested by pests. So their spending on pesticides also increased tremendously. And by 2018, the farmers were spending on an average 37% more on their BT cotton crops compared to the pre-BT levels. So which means the farmers spending increased by 37 percentage times percent as compared to the time when BT cotton was not introduced. So this is another issue that it has increased the spending by the farmers. The third issue is that whatever benefits this introduction of BT cotton accrued to the farmers were also short-lived. So in spite of the farmers using so much of fertilizers and the irrigation facilities having expanded, usage of pesticides by the farmers, in spite of all these things, India's global ranking in the production of cotton is at 36. And India's the national average of the production is much below even some of the poor African countries in this regard. So we can say that whatever benefits accrued from the introduction of BT cotton by helping in raising the yields in the initial years also got plateaued, and the benefits were short-lived. The next important thing is climate change. So with the climate change now actually already there, and we are living amidst the climate change, with the increase in temperature and humidity, the possibility of more pests coming up and attacking these crops is also more. And also the possibility of the yield of the cotton falling is also more. In this regard, research whatever has been done till date has shown that growing desi cotton varieties by improving the density of the planting and also short season plants when they are planted, then these cotton yields can be as good if not better than the BT cotton. And these desi crops also stand a better chance at withstanding the climate change and the associated changes that happens in temperature and humidity. So because of the climate change, research has already shown how desi cotton varieties can be more withstanding of the changing temperature and humidity and precipitation patterns. And also by when we are going with high density planting of the desi cotton varieties, that is going to help us rather than harm us. So this has been the impact of the climate change on the BT cotton by having more pests attacks and all that. So in which case the native cotton varieties can stand a better chance at surviving. So the other issue is that whenever you look at the introduction of the BT cotton in India in various areas and the yield that increased, you always see there is no correlation between the introduction of BT cotton in how much area it was introduced and what was the resultant yield of the cotton. Now you will understand when I explain this with an example. Take the example of Gujarat. So what happened in Gujarat was that the yield of cotton increased by 138% in the year 2003. So that was a huge increase in the yield of cotton in 2003, which was by an increase of 138%. But however, only in 5% of the total land that was used for cotton cultivation, only in 5% of that land the BT cotton variety was sown. So there is no commensuration between these two. That is, only on 5% of the total land that was used for cotton cultivation was the BT seeds sown, but however it amounted to a 138% increase in the yield. This happened because not just of the BT cotton that was introduced, but there were other factors that were at play. For example, in Gujarat that time the irrigation facilities were improved. So even in the 95% of the area where the normal cotton varieties were sown, there also yield improved because of the improved irrigation facilities that were provided in Gujarat that time. And there was also a dramatic increase in the use of fertilizers in Gujarat that time. So it was because of this irrigation and the fertilizer, the facilities that was provided in Gujarat, that the growth of cotton, the yield of cotton improved in the 95% of the area that was grown with normal cotton varieties, and not just in the 5% of area where the BT cotton was sown. So this is one thing that you have to remember, that in this period after the BT cotton was introduced, the yield has increased of cotton, and that is not only because of the introduction of BT cotton, but it is also because of the better provision of fertilizers and also better expansion of the irrigation facilities by the government. And the last issue is the stagnating yields. So when you look at the yields of BT cotton since its introduction till now, after a point of time, this increase in the yield has stopped and the yields have plateaued or stagnated. So by 2018, the yields of the BT cotton were much lower than in the years when the BT cotton was actually adopted. So there, from 2007 onwards, you can see from the data that the yields have already started to stagnate and they have reached a plateau. So after 2007, there has not been much increase in the yield of BT cotton. So these are the issues with the BT cotton, and very precisely you can mention this to argue your case why BT introduction of the BT varieties or the genetically modified crops may not be a panacea for solving the agrarian distress. Now we'll move on to the next topic. So this is the next topic, which is a case study of the role of Gram Panchayats. So Gram Panchayats and their functioning is a part of your GS2 syllabus, and it's also a very important topic if you have public administration as your optional. And whenever you are writing any answer on Gram Panchayats, quoting a case study on what important crucial role they can play in the society is very important. So in this regard, we'll be talking about the Vattavada Gram Panchayat of Kerala. So what this Gram Panchayat has done is, this area faced a problem of caste discrimination. So all the saloons in this area, they were discriminating against some of the lower castes and they were denying saloon services to them. So the Chakliya community was at the receiving end, where the saloons were discriminating against this community and they were not providing saloon services to this community. When this issue reached the Gram Panchayats, they decided that something has to be done about this, and such social prejudices and the caste system should not prevail in the country. So what they did was they asked all these saloons to close down. They closed down all these saloons that were discriminating against a particular caste or community. And then one of the panchayat buildings was itself refurnished into a saloon. And in this saloon, the services are now being provided to all the citizens without any discrimination based on the caste. And the Gram Panchayat has also made it clear that until and unless the other saloons in the region are they provide services without any discrimination to every person who goes to the saloon, these saloons will not be opened up. So this is a clear message that the Gram Panchayat has sent, and it has even refurnished one of its own buildings into a saloon, whereby no discrimination will be done on the basis of caste. So this is one way how the Gram Panchayats at the grassroots level can play a very crucial role in overcoming such barriers. So now we'll move on to the next topic. And this topic is related to foreign direct investment. Yesterday also we saw in the FDI, again the same topic we'll be discussing today, but this is related to a new cabinet decision related to the FDI in the defense sector. So FDI, various investment models, as I said yesterday, will come under your GS3 syllabus. So in the defense sector, the foreign direct investment was allowed through the automatic route up to 49%. And after 49%, if more investment is coming, then that will be allowed under the government route, where specific government permission needs to be taken for investment in the defense sector. But now the cabinet has made an announcement that in the defense sector, the FDI has been raised to 74% under the automatic route. But however, the cabinet has kept a clause of the national security, which means whenever any proposal for foreign direct investment in the defense sector is coming, wherein under the automatic route it is allowed up to 74%, but however the government is going to scrutinize this proposal on the national security clause, and only when it is satisfied that it is safe with respect to the national security, only then such an FDI under the automatic route will be allowed up to 74%. So you have to basically know the FDI limits of the government in various sectors, so that whenever a question is asked on FDI and whether India is still a liberalized economy or we still operate under a lot of constraints, you need to know some basic data related to what is the limit of FDI that is allowed in various sectors. And again, this is also important from your prelims point of view. You may see a question on FDI and in which of the sectors it is allowed more and less, so that order you may expect in your prelims question also. So this data you will have to just put a box and then write that this is the FDI in this sector, like that, which will help the evaluator also know that you know this stuff, and based on this facts you are analyzing the role of FDI in India and what is the status of the FDI in India. So now we'll move on to the next topic. The next topic is related to wildlife conservation and is a part of your GS3 syllabus. And why this is also more important is because such questions also appear in your prelims. So the World Wildlife Fund, the WWF, has released the Living Planet report of 2020. So every year there is definitely one or two questions on which body releases which report. So the World Wildlife Fund releases the Living Planet report 2020, which has now come recently. So this is a prelims trivia that you need to know. Now what we'll be focusing is some of the important observations that this report has made, which is again important from both your prelims as well as mains perspective. So even in the mains, when you're arguing for or when you're answering a question on the wildlife conservation, you must be able to quote some facts and figures. I keep repeatedly saying that no answer is complete without facts, figures and examples. So you have to quote facts and figures in support or to support your arguments that there actually has been the wildlife degradation, or the wildlife has been threatened, and we are actually losing the precious environmental resources. So you need to support that with the data, and that is what we'll be looking at. And these trends are also important from your prelims perspective, where you may have a question on the trends that this or the observations that this report has made. So let's begin that. First, let's discuss about some of the important observations that this report has made. First thing is that this report says that there has been the global wildlife population has reduced, and it says that between 1970 to 2016, the world or the global wildlife population has seen a reduction of 68%, which is extremely huge. So this statistic you should know whenever you are making a case for unsustainable development that is going on, and we need to move towards more sustainable development. So where we should also use keywords like ecosystem integrity, ecological integrity and all that. So from 1970 to 2016, the world has lost 68% of the global wildlife population. Second is, the report says that there has been a huge change in the land use pattern. In fact, 75% of the Earth's ice-free land surface has been altered significantly because of such huge changes that have happened in the land use pattern. Of this, the most important is converting these pristine habitats into agricultural lands, then overfishing of the oceans. And apart from that, the report also discusses the other important factors that have actually contributed to the loss of biodiversity on the planet. So one factor for the loss of biodiversity is the changing land use pattern. The second is we are losing out species because of overexploitation. This is the next. And then is the role of invasive species. And then of course is pollution. And lastly, climate change. So these are the important factors which have contributed to the loss of biodiversity at the global level. So the report discusses all of these factors also. And apart from that, it also says that nearly 85% of the area of wetlands has been lost in this period. And this again is a very huge percentage. So we have lost really too much in this period. So this is what the report observes in terms of at the global level. It also makes observations at the level of India, where it says that India has lost nearly 1/3 of its wetlands, its natural wetlands. Why? Because of the rapid and unsustainable urbanization that is happening, and of the expansion of the agricultural lands that is happening, and also the pollution of these wetlands. Because of all these reasons, India has lost 1/3 of its wetlands. And then it says that 14 out of the 20 river basins in India are already water stressed, and India by 2050 will be facing huge water scarcity. So this is a second observation. And lastly, the report also says that in India, there is particularly a concern about the data that is related to these wildlife, plants and animals. So whatever data is collected regarding the plants, animal species, their habitats, they are not available and they are not adequate. And unless we have the correct and precise data, it becomes very difficult to understand the root cause of the problem and then to identify solutions for tackling the same. So there is a huge amount of data, the adequacy of the data problem in India, where we are not collecting data, and whatever data is collected is also not precise and unambiguous. So this is very problematic, because we will not be able to arrive at a solution to tackle these problems. So this is what the Living Planet Report 2020 also observes related to India. So that is it for today. Other articles that weren't important from the exam point of view. So revise well. Have a good day. Thank you.